Hello, and today let's take a look at an article written on Saturday, January 21st, 2017. Louise O'Neill. It is impossible for women to be sexist towards men. Of course it is. Is anyone surprised anymore about these titles to columns? And Louise O'Neill talks about the notion of reverse sexism and how it is impossible for women to be sexist towards men.
I've spoken at length about why I find the man-hating tag to be insulting, lazy, and utterly inaccurate.
And I bet that you have also spoken at length about why you find the woman-hating tag to be insulting, lazy, and utterly inaccurate as well. It's sad that not too many people don't see the double standard. If a woman is being called a man-hater, it's not a bad thing, or man-hating, it's not a bad thing. But if you say that you hate women, or somebody accuses you of hating women, then it's the end of the world. See the double standards, people.
It is possible to criticize a societal structure that benefits white, straight men at the cost of others while still having the ability to love individual men who exist within that structure.
So which societal structures straight white men are being benefited over others? You've heard these stats before, but most of the homeless are men, so most of the suicides are men, and yet men get lower funds for mental health, for example. We don't have huge benefits. Some men possibly, but that's the 1%, not the 99% of men.
People often quote the dictionary at me. Sexism is discrimination on the basis of one's sex, because, as we know, all complex ideologies are easily explained in one sentence.
And I bet that you as a feminist, when somebody says that feminists are just man-haters and not about equality, I bet that you will give them the dictionary definition of feminism about how they said blah 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 blah. Equality between the sexes. Sexism is discrimination on the basis of one's sex. So why that dictionary definition doesn't suit when we are talking about men facing sexism? You only use the dictionary when it benefits you.
This definition would seem to imply that either gender can be sexist, but I'm going to make a rather bold assertion today. That isn't true. It is impossible for women to be sexist towards men. Women can, as Melissa A. Fabello writes in her excellent essay, Why Reverse Oppression Simply Cannot Exist, make stereotypical assumptions about men. They can be prejudiced towards men. They can discriminate against men based on those prejudices. However, she writes, only oppressed people experience all of that and institutionalized violence and systematic erasure. That's why it's not possible to be sexist against men. But to say that women can be sexist about men, that it's the same when a woman makes an offensive joke about a man as when the situation is reversed, is to be willfully blind to the deeply imbalanced world that we live in. Women cannot be as sexist as men because that would suggest that women would somehow benefit from sexism, that they are the ones who hold the political, economic and cultural power in our society.
Yes, of course it's impossible for women to be sexist towards men. You talk about how this Melissa wrote about people experience all of only oppressed people experience all of that, and institutionalized violence and systematic erasure. So women get shorter sentences in court in domestic violence cases, even when the abuser is a woman. Man is often taken to custody, And of course, in child custody cases, women are preferred over men. So, in what area are men oppressing women? I would say that men suffer from institutionalized violence.
Here are a few examples to illustrate my point. People are often publicly shamed for being fat. Those who are underweight will sometimes say that it's just as hurtful to comment on their thinness, and that fat shaming and skinny shaming are commensurate in unkindness. While commenting on the bodies of others should be unacceptable in any circumstances, there is a far greater price to pay for being fat in our society. Thinness, even extreme thinness, is celebrated in a way that fatness is not.
As I have been skinning all my life, 28 years, I can say that you hear a lot of shit for being a skinny man from other men and from women. And especially if you are also short, you get that as well. Some women saying they will never ever date a man who is shorter than they are. Now, is it as bad as somebody who's clearly fat? I don't know. In my own experience, you're right, it's not as bad. But if a fat person would come to me and say, you skinny man, blah 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 blah, something horrible, then if I would want to call him fat right back at him, I wouldn't feel bad about that. And if somebody would start to complain to me that, you're skinny, you can't say that to him or her, then I don't give a shit if they say that. He or she started it and they were skinny shaming me. So I can fat shame them right back at them.
In a randomized, double-blind study in the U.S., members of a science faculty were asked to rate student applications for the position of laboratory manager. Identical applications were randomly assigned either a male or female name, and the male applicant was overwhelmingly rated as more competent.
I bet that if you do a randomized double-blind study in the US about some nursery teachers or those, preschool teachers, whatever, and if you put those resumes, applications with a male or a female name, I would bet that the female applicant would get overwhelmingly rated as more competent, and in a worst case scenario, male applicants would be viewed as a possible pedophile. But you won't talk about that, won't you?
It is clear that we do not live in a society that treats men and women in the same way. The idea of reverse sexism fails to acknowledge the wildly different consequences of prejudice against men and that against women.
But how many women honestly want to be treated just the same as a man? And I'm talking about signing up for draft, paying on a first date, or splitting the bill. What else? If you're around children, you are seen as a possible pedophile. Yeah, that one also. What else? As I said, in domestic violence cases, you would be viewed as a perpetrator even when you are a victim. Stuff like those. So would women want that? I doubt that they will want that.
I agree that men are discriminated against, socially and culturally, by the expectation that they conform to a stifling idea of masculinity, a toxic model of manhood that insists talking about their feelings is girly. Of course, this failure to express themselves is what is driving suicide rates in young men, but it is the patriarchy that is to blame for this. The patriarchy, and its insistence on strict gender roles, is hurting us all. It needs to be dismantled, and new, kinder, more fair system put in its place. But in order to take it apart, every one of us is going to have to acknowledge that it actually exists in the first place. It is clear that we do not live in a society that treats men and women in the same way.
Again with the toxic masculinity. When we are going to hear about toxic femininity, and of course you also have to blame the patriarchy. Yeah. And maybe the suicide rates in young men is that they are maybe mentally ill, they don't get the services they want or need, they feel all alone because they are men and men don't need help, or then they only need feminism so they can speak about their feelings, but when they are trying to talk about their feelings with someone, maybe they don't listen, maybe they have been accused of rape, and even though he's innocent, people still view him as a rapist. So maybe these are some of the things that drive that suicide rate. Anyway, thanks for watching. I was trying out a new style. Hope you liked it. Leave a comment down below and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.